Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, I like to express my deepest gratitude to God for the permission we are having to meet once again this week. It's a great honor and privilege to be here participating in this study with each of you. How is everybody today? I hope everybody is well. Today, I'd like to take this moment to also thank all those who have joined our sponsorship program. As you are well aware, we have a goal of reaching 75 families, of joining together with 75 families this year to bring this message to as many people as possible. It's really easy to sign up. It is a monthly commitment. We have 3 tiers. You can check it out on our webpage. It's there in the tab. You just go to the page, and here on the page now we have this cookie banner that has to be there. So you can actually just click on that accept, and then you go down to the tabs here and you select more on this case because it's a small screen, sponsorship program, and the page should load for you if you're not there already. And from our webpage at the very bottom, you can just choose the donation options. So here at the bottom of the page, you can choose between the 3 tiers, or you can do a one-time donation with the amounts that you would like, or any custom amount that suits your needs. If you're using a Apple device, you will see here Apple Pay, or you can choose another payment method. And when you click there, let's say you put in a tier or any other amount, and you click other payment method, it will give you the option, if you're in the US, to connect to your bank, which is totally safe, secure, or you can connect through a credit card. You can use your credit card to do that. Also, you can contact your local church. Over there, the person in charge can help you with that information. Okay, so if you are not able to do it online, they can assist, or you can actually do it directly through the church and participate in the sponsorship program through there. Okay, it's with your dedication, it's with your efforts that makes it possible. Here below, we have the QR code. If you're watching from your TV or from your computer, you can just scan it with the phone. Okay, or just visit the link below the QR code or in the description of our videos, and you should be able to access the donation page from there. So again, we have an objective goal of 75 families joining us this year to bring this gospel of salvation to as many people as possible. Look forward to working with each and every one of you. I'd like to also thank all those who are participating in some way or another, not necessarily through the sponsorship program. Your donations are also very important to bring this forth to as many people as possible. And I like to ask everybody to share. Make sure you're sharing these videos. Make sure you're sharing these messages. Subscribe to our page. It's the only way to get it out to our family and friends and to all those who are desperately needing this message. Okay, I think the whole world is waiting for. God created this moment for this message, for him to come to surface. So let us bring that to all our friends, to all our families. All right? So without further ado, I'd like to begin our study today. World Church of Messiah, USA Canon. With great fear of God, we acknowledge that the Lord God is our true Father, the one and only God. We revere Meishu-sama as the model for all humanity and as our own example to follow. Meishu-sama, who was born anew as a true child of God, the Messiah, by receiving the divine will that God accomplished in heaven. We believe that Jesus Christ, who 2,000 years ago embodied the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, is serving the Lord God in unity with Meishu-sama. We regard the messages of Kyoshu-sama, who reveals to us the will of Meishu-sama in this material world as the sole, absolute, and irreplaceable foundation in advancing our mission here on earth. Words of prayer. God, I acknowledge that you are alive. Within me, you are alive. I thank you for nurturing me to be newly born as your child. May this blessing be shared with all. In the name of Messiah, which is one with Meishu-sama, I surrender myself to you. Please use me as you wish. So today we have a great study ahead of us. I chose a few posts from our Instagram page in Japan, our mother church. If you haven't signed up to the page yet, please do so. Just, you can like the page and you'll see the feeds come up on your Instagram daily. It's really a great way to keep our sonin aligned, to keep us in tune with what's going on and how to really fulfill our mission here, Meishu-sama's true desire. So I highly recommend you follow this page. I know there are many of us in our church, the wiser generation, are not very tech savvy, but I'm sure you have family members, nieces, nephews, daughters, children, sons that can help you to do that. So get connected and check out this page. It's really amazing. So today I chose a few for our study. The first one comes from Kyoshu-sama's message to members around the world on December 23rd, 2021. And in it, Kyoshu-sama shares the following. I truly wish that many people receive the will of Meishu-sama together with me. And just like Nidai-sama, I earnestly pray that people will not leave the true church of Meishu-sama, that is, leave Meishu-sama himself, by rejecting his will, as some have already done. Kyoshu-sama. This is a very powerful message from Kyoshu-sama and a very deep prayer, I believe, for each one of us. And I was actually asked about it this past week, and it's nice, because on the Instagram we get to recycle some of these messages, right, that we've received and maybe forgotten or overlooked. Like you can see here, it's from December 23rd, 2021, and I was asked about it, and people asked me, can you explain a little bit more, right? So if we don't follow Kyoshu-sama, we're not really following Meishu-sama, was the question. And yes, it's exactly that. And that's the exact message Nidai-sama gave also at her time, as we've seen in previous studies, right? Because the one and only person who inherits Meishu-sama's will is Kyoshu-sama. We've had access to Meishu-sama's sacred word for years, right? And because within us, there was a part of us that rejected this truth, that Kyoshu-sama is the only one who inherits Meishu-sama's will, we thought we could interpret Meishu-sama's sacred word, right? We thought we could just read and understand what God wanted for us through Meishu-sama because we knew how to read those words. Even though Meishu-sama himself says that his sacred word is the hardest thing to understand since the invention of words, right? And here, today, Kyoshu-sama is showing his true desire, his true prayer to God, right? For us to be able to truly follow Meishu-sama's will, to really receive Meishu-sama's will. And the only way we can do that is through Kyoshu-sama. That's the true church of Meishu-sama. Meishu-sama established this position of Kyoshu for that, right? With that, there is no true growth. There is no true understanding. There's no true fulfillment of our mission. It's just impossible, right? So we are truly, truly blessed to be receiving Meishu-sama's true will through Kyoshu-sama. to be receiving Kyoshu-sama's permission to understand Meishu-sama's true will. And we shouldn't take this for granted. That is one of the major reasons why every week we are studying Kyoshu-sama and Masaaki-sama's guidance here, is to be able to truly receive Meishu-sama's will. If we don't do that, there is no way to do it. We've tried that route and look where it got us. Years of conflict, years of mess, and we strayed away from Meishu-sama all those years, right? We are even lucky that Meishu-sama is allowing us to continue, right? We are very blessed, and we can't take that for granted anymore. So if you truly receive Meishu-sama, if you truly want to follow Meishu-sama, then there's only one path, and that is through Kyoshu-sama. There's no way around it. It's through the church that Kyoshu-sama is in the center of, and that's World Church of Messiah. So let us keep that in mind as we participate in these studies. It's with Kyoshu-sama's permission that we're being allowed to even have these studies, okay? To even share our understanding and try to go deeper into receiving Meishu-sama's true will. All right, so that's the first part that I like for us to keep in mind during our study. The next message is the following. From Kyoshu-sama's New Year message on January 1st, 2022. And in Kyoshu-sama's New Year message, he shares, in deep awe and fear of God, I say that we have been made into ones who are aware that a soul dwells within us, a soul that is engraved with the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, and the name of the child of God, the Father, who is one and only. You know, this in itself is material for a whole study, right? But I think that many times, at least I can say for myself, right, when we receive Kyoshu-sama's message, it's very easy to just fly by and read through the message, right? And this is in the very beginning of Kyoshu-sama's message, right? In deep awe and fear of God. Have we ever really stopped to reflect on what it means that the Lord God is alive within us? As Kyoshu-sama puts it here, that a soul dwells within us, a soul that is engraved with the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, and the name of the child of God the Father. That is the very essence that dwells within us. Our true existence, the true life that exists within us. You know, were it not for Kyoshu-sama, we wouldn't be made aware of this, right? We would still be thinking very separate, very different from that, right? Very far away from that, that we are the ones that are the main existence, right? We are the ones doing and neglecting the very essence of God's soul alive within us, which carries the name that is most holy and high. I think this is it's very crucial for everything we are doing. It's the very task, right, of our church is to become aware that God exists, that God is alive. And Kyoshu-sama has been bringing that out to us. So even more of a reason for us to truly acknowledge who Kyoshu-sama is in this church, right? And to keep in mind during our reading today. The next quote I chose from the Instagram is from Masaaki-sama's greeting in the beginning of spring service on February 4th, 2022. And in this greeting, he shares, until today, we have been trying to build a paradise on earth through the joray of raising one's hand. Now the time has come for us to do that through the true joray of Sone. It brings me to think of a few things, right? One is that finally we're starting to receive, accept, understand Meishu-sama's true will of what it truly means to build a paradise on earth. We are realizing that it's not a physical act of us raising our hands, but involves our participation. But another point that brought me to reflect in this quote on Instagram is that there is a change, right? We can see that there's a growth here. There is a evolvement, something that evolved. And I think this is also very crucial as we read today's message as well. Okay. And the last quote, which was very strong, and I also want to bring it up as we read today, is the following. Meishu-sama suffered and was in pain to the degree that he thought of committing suicide. It was under these circumstances that Meishu-sama left us the true Jorei in his last year on earth. That is, the true Jorei was born through his suffering. Masaaki-sama, and this is also from the same greeting, beginning of spring service on February 4th, 2022. I'm going to read this again, okay? Meishu-sama suffered and was in pain to the degree that he thought of committing suicide. It was under these circumstances that Meishu-sama left us the true Jorei in his last year on earth. That is, the true Jorei that was born through his suffering. When we take a look at Meishu-sama's life and what he had to go through to bring us this true will of God, right? It just makes us ever more grateful for that. And to understand that this shift, this change in Jorei came through a great suffering, a great difficulty in Meishu-sama's very own being. But it was done and he went through it for each and every one of us. And Meishu-sama's true will is now being conveyed to us because this essence and this change and this evolution was not looked at for years, right? Because we couldn't inherit Meishu-sama's true will. We couldn't understand that. And today, Kyoshu-sama is bringing this to us, bringing us to become aware of what this true Jorei of Meishu-sama is. So we can't let it just go, right? We can't just pretend that it didn't happen. How? After knowing such truth, after knowing how much what Meishu-sama went through, how can we disregard it and just say, I'm going to keep doing the physical Jorei that I did up to now? I'm going to keep living my life the way I did up to now because it pleases me. It pleases how I feel and what I like and what I enjoy. If we really want to follow Meishu-sama 100%, then it's ever more clear. There is no other way than through Kyoshu-sama. And we are truly fortunate today because we are not in an age where the information takes so long to arrive, right? It's overnight sometimes. Directly from Kyoshu-sama, from the holy seat of Kyoshu, we receive Masaaki-sama's messages in English and Portuguese. Not even in Japanese only, right? And many times we choose to be too busy to read, or we choose to be too busy to study. And I say choose because it's a choice how we use that time, right? But here, if we really want to follow, if we really want to participate in this paradise on earth that Meishu-sama talks about consciously, then there's no better time than today to begin. There's no better time than now. And we are truly blessed to be able to have these studies. So today I'd like to read with you Masaaki-sama's message number 13, Never Give Up, on July 20th, 2022. So last week we saw the video, but we just received the transcript, and I'd like to read it with you one more time and go through it. Go through it with also these points in mind that we just discussed. Okay? Masaaki-sama's message number 13. Never give up. Meishu-sama says that there should be something different between the present you and the yesterday you, or even between the present you and the 5 minutes ago you. He says that the world today is different from the world yesterday. What he's saying is that we are always evolving and growing, that we are being renewed day by day, no, minute by minute, or even second by second. The same is true for the world. It is always evolving, improving, and being renewed by God every minute, every second. But do we see ourselves that way? Do we see the world that way? Like Meishu-sama, do we see ourselves and the world as getting better every second? Every day, are we filled with the hope that we are getting better, that the world is getting better? Every morning, every evening, do we thank God for renewing us to be a better being, for making the world a better place? Or are we filled with anxiety about how things are getting worse, how the world is growing more chaotic day by day, and how we are deteriorating day by day? I like to make a quick pause here. As I shared in the last video, right? Something that really touched me in this message, and I want to rephrase it one more time, right? Re-stress it, because, you know, it's hard, right? To recognize. When I first received this sacred word from Meishu-sama years ago, I used to think that the idea of improving, the idea of getting better was something that was coming from me. I was thinking I need to improve. I was thinking I need to get better every moment, every second, right? But I never stopped to think that God is renewing me every minute, every second. Furthermore, it was the idea that I was improving myself and getting better for this life, for this world, right? The goal was here. I never stopped to thank God for always evolving and improving and being renewed by God every minute, every second. That's huge. I'm not saying that we don't need to do our best and we don't need to improve, like I mentioned last week, right? But to recognize that God is renewing us, as we saw in that quote earlier today, right? In deep awe and fear of God, I say that we have been made into ones who are aware that a soul dwells within us, a soul that is engraved with the name of Messiah, the name most holy and high, and the name of the child of God the Father, who is one and only. And God, within the very center of us, alive, is nurturing us, renewing us day by day, minute by minute, second by second. I think we completely take for granted, even when our physical self is evolving and growing and changing and going through all its transformations, we neglect the fact that it is God doing that every moment, right? And we think that something bad is happening to us because we're deteriorating. But this message goes much deeper, right? As we saw last week, it's not about only our physical self changing. And one thing that I noticed in this message that, I neglected to say last week is that Jorei itself evolved. right? Through Meishu-sama's great suffering, as we saw today, a new Jorei, the true Jorei, was born. Our understanding of that evolved, is evolving now. But for Meishu-sama, evolved, right? It grew into something completely new. Meishu-sama himself was constantly improving and changing. But we so many times even use the expression, right? How can all these changes be happening? I'm not used to that. I don't want any change. I want to stick to what I knew, to what I know. But we don't recognize that God within us is making that growth minute by minute, day by day, second by second. And Masaaki-sama continues, right, in his message and shares, maybe those who are young or healthy are able to answer that they are evolving and growing day by day. Or maybe, if life ahead looks promising, you can say that the world is getting better and better. But what if you find out that you have a disease like cancer? What if you know that you're going to pass away in just a few months? What if you face a hardship in your life that you think you'll never be able to overcome no matter what you do? In these circumstances, are we able to say with confidence that we are evolving every minute? That we are being renewed every second? That the world is getting better day by day? To be frank, that would be quite difficult for us, wouldn't it? But why then was it possible for Meishu-sama to say that we and the world are evolving every minute? He wrote about this when he was 68 years old. He must have felt that his physical body was deteriorating, that he was aging, and rightly so, as he suffered from a brain hemorrhage 3 years later when he was 71. The following year, he passed away. Now, I have some questions for you. Do you think Meishu-sama was filled with anxiety from the time he received the purification to the moment he passed away? Do you think Meishu-sama thought that he was actually deteriorating? That things were getting worse for him? Do you think Meishu-sama was cursing God for making him suffer from a disease and eventually making him die because of it? The answer to all these questions is simply no. A definite no. I am convinced that Meishu-sama was praising and thanking God and returning all glory to God, even though his physical body was in pain and he was about to die. That is a big contrast between us and Meishu-sama, wouldn't you agree? Usually, we center our life on us, right? On what we're feeling, on what we're experiencing, what we are suffering. And we even curse God because of it, right? Why are you doing this to me? God, if you are all powerful, almighty, can't you change me? Can't you make me better? The whole focus and the whole center is on us. But Meishu-sama was different, right? Even though his body was in pain, physically deteriorating, Meishu-sama was going through that process, returning all glory to God, glorifying God through that process. And Meishu-sama's goal was not Mokichi Okada, the man, and his goal. His goal was the same as God's. It became one with God's. He received that goal and it became one sole goal. And through that, Meishu-sama glorified God. And I think that's the the thing that made it possible for Meishu-sama to, even though he was going through a physical pain, even though he had those thoughts of suicide, like we saw just now, because of so much pain, something completely new was able to be born. And Meishu-sama was able to share with us the true Jorei through that process. You know, looking at it 70 years later, after Meishu-sama went through it, is a lot easier, right? Than if you're in the midst of the problem, if you're in the midst of the suffering. But we have to step back and be able to see ourselves. What's our goal? Who's at the center of our life? Who is alive within us? Is this life about me? Or is this life about God? Is this life about glorifying myself? Or is this life about glorifying God? Because I think there we'll find the big difference, the line of hope, you know, that cord of hope that you can cling on to while you're going through all those changes, or you get lost in complete despair. Masaaki-sama continues. I am convinced that on February 10th, 1955, at 3:33 in the afternoon, which by the way was the time of Meishu-sama's death, Meishu-sama was telling God, "Oh God, I thank you for making me evolve and grow, and for renewing me all the time. I am getting better and better every second, even now." And with that thought, Meishu-sama left the earth. I am convinced of this, for that is who Meishu-sama was, an extraordinary man with nothing but a burning passion and love for God and an unshakable faith in God. But still, why was Meishu-sama able to be like this? Why was he able to believe that he was evolving and growing even though his physical body was deteriorating? And the answer is this: he knew that his true self was not Mokichokada, but the soul of Messiah that existed within him. He knew that his true self was not the human self, but the soul of God that rested within him. Now, what does that mean? And that is huge, right? To recognize that your true identity is not the one who was born on this earth with this name and living this life. I'll read this again. He knew that his true self was not Mokichokada, but the soul of Messiah that existed within him. He knew that his true self was not the human self, but the soul of God that rested within him. How do we see ourselves today? Can you look at yourself and recognize who you truly are? You know, in literature, in our culture, in everything we do, usually it comes down to our name, does it not? In most literary works, when one dies, the only thing he leaves is his name, right? And everything comes down to our name, right? Your legacy is passed down through your name. So we are so accustomed to saying, you know, our identity, who we are. For example, I am Igor Melcher, right? This is my name. This is my legacy. This is, you know, what I'm going to leave for the generations to come when I die. But Meishu-sama recognized differently. His true self was not Mokichokada, but the soul of Messiah that existed within him. This is huge, right? More so because it's not something that's glorifying him, right? In the end, it's not to glorify Mokicho Kada the man. And Masaaki-sama goes and explains much better in this way. Now, what does this mean? When we hear that each one of us can be a second coming of Christ, we immediately assume that we are on the receiving end, that the soul of Christ descends within us. My name is so and so, and I am receiving the soul of Christ. This is how we think, do we not? For a long time, we have, right, this calligraphies, right, the descension of the Messiah, right? And I also thought in this way, right? Me being Igor Melcher, I am receiving this soul of Christ. But if our true self is the soul of God, the soul of Messiah, the soul of Christ that rests within us, then we are not at all on the receiving end. Right? This is huge. And for lack of better words, right? We are not on the receiving end. Rather, we are the ones who come from heaven. We are not the ones who look up to heaven and see Christ descend. We are the ones who descend, for our true self is the soul of God, the soul of Christ, that God granted us in heaven. I am saying something super simple here. I'm not saying anything complicated, something we can't understand. And I love this phrase, right? Because it's a very big tendency of ours. When we don't want to accept such truth of anything, we say this is complicated and I don't want to think about it, right? It's like an excuse that we run off to. But here, Masaaki-sama clarifies and shares with us, I'm saying something super simple here. I am not saying anything complicated, something we can't understand. But if we can't understand it, that is because we treasure our physical self and physical life so much that we have completely forgotten our spiritual self, our true self that God gave us in heaven a long time ago. And this is where we question ourselves, right? Which one are we going to value more? Our true self, our spiritual self that God gave us in heaven a long time ago, or this identity of how we identify ourselves as who we are now, this physical life, this physical self. Which one is more important to you and me is the question we have to ask ourselves. We choose to accept our true self and seek this true identity, or say we don't understand it and be so attached to this physical self. To the question, who are you? Our answer to God should not be, my name is so and so, born in this year by my father and mother. Instead, our answer to God should be, through Jesus, Meishu-sama and Kyoshu-sama, I have come to know that I am your child. I am the soul of Christ itself. I am the soul of Messiah itself. Then God will say to you, that is right, my child. You are my child who lives eternally. Now, if your true self is the soul of God itself, do you think you are an existence that is going to deteriorate and perish in the end? Of course not. If your true self is a divine one, what lies ahead of you is a glorious future, and a glorious future only. Is not God someone who evolves eternally? Then you too are an existence that evolves, grows, and improves eternally. It is precisely because Meishu-sama had this belief that he was able to face his brain stroke and even his death with hope, with overflowing hope, and with enormous joy that he was evolving and growing every second by the power of God. I'm going to read this part one more time, okay? It is precisely because Meishu-sama had this belief that he was able to face his brain stroke and even his death with hope, with overflowing hope, and with enormous joy that he was evolving and growing every second by the power of God. If we ever find ourselves in trouble, with despair, no hope, here's the very way Meishu-sama was able to come out of that. It's the very recipe for each one of us, right? We have to be able to see what was it that gave Meishu-sama such overflowing hope. What was it that allowed Meishu-sama to overcome all his attachment, all his ego that was binding him to this earthly life, right? To that identity of Mukichokada. Meishu-sama was able to face his brain stroke and even his death with hope, with overflowing hope, with enormous joy that he was evolving and growing every second by the power of God. It wasn't something that Meishu-sama was doing out of his own power. It was the very power of God, alive, making Meishu-sama evolve and grow every second, as is with you and me. That is why we never give up. Though our bodies are dying, our spirits are being renewed every day. For our present troubles are small and won't last very long, yet they produce for us a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. So we don't look at the troubles we can see now. Rather, we fix our gaze on things that cannot be seen. For the things we see now will soon be gone, but the things we cannot see will last forever. 2 Corinthians 4:16 through 18. Look at this message. Is this not the very essence of how Meishu-sama lived his life? Fixing his gaze on God, who is unseen and eternal. And what allowed him to see that all his troubles, all his difficulties were so temporary, but producing a glory that vastly outweighs them and will last forever. What glory is that? That's God's glory. If this is not the best recipe for each one of us, I don't know what is, right? If this does not give each one of us hope and a completely new meaning to the sacred word of Meishu-sama that for so long I misunderstood, I don't know what will, right? Meishu-sama was showing us that we are constantly evolving and growing by the very power of God, and was able to communicate that to God. His true gratitude was to God for that, right? And I believe that we are on the path of the same in true hope for each and every one of us. I'm very grateful to be able to share this message with you today, to share these thoughts with you today. And let's seek to really serve in God's glory through our very own body, through everything we are experiencing, recognizing it is for the glory of God, not for our glory. May all honor, may all glory be returned to God always. Thank you.